The broadcast is now starting. All attendees are in listen-only mode.
Hi everyone, welcome to tonight's webinar, The Psychology of Success, Wellness Principles to Achieve Work-Life Balance and Prosperity. My name is Zoe Kessler, and I'll be your host this evening on behalf of PsychCentral.com. Before we introduce tonight's presenter, I'd like to remind you that you'll be able to access the complete webinar online at Psych Central's YouTube channel later this week. Tonight's session will consist of a presentation followed by a question and answer period. During the Q&A, please type your questions in the question panel. We'll try to answer everyone's questions, but we'll also do our best to wrap up the session within an hour. And now, I'd like to welcome tonight's presenter, Joyce Marter. Joyce is a licensed clinical professional counselor and CEO of Urban Balance. She's currently president of the board of the Illinois Mental Health Counselors Association, and, of course, she's one of our Psych Central bloggers. Her blog is called, what else? The Psychology of Success in Business. So please visit her, if you haven't already, over at PsychCentral.com. And so, without further ado, I'll hand the reins over to Joyce. Welcome, Joyce.
Thank you so much, Zoe, and thank you to all of you for participating. Zoe, I am looking for, there we go, we are all ready to start my presentation.
Looking good.
Great. You can hear me, you can see the slides. Well, I'm extremely honored and grateful to have been given this opportunity to tape this webinar for Psych Central. The Psychology of Success is a presentation which I created that is an overview of wellness principles, which I've found to be really helpful in my work with my clients, in my business, and in my own personal journey. Over the past 18 years, I've had the honor of counseling hundreds of people from diverse backgrounds. And in this presentation, I share the wisdom I've gleaned from them through our work together. I've given this presentation for business organizations, Fortune 500 companies, and to groups of therapists. My hope is that the compilation of these wellness principles will cause you to reflect and to create positive change in your work, your career, your relationships, and your own personal journey. Throughout this webinar, I encourage you to take notes whenever you hear things that resonate with you. Also, there will be times throughout the workshop that I will suggest that you jot down some responses. As Zoe said, you will be able to ask questions at the end. Zoe mentioned that I've been a psychotherapist in private practice since 1998. I earned my master's in counseling psychology from Northwestern University and received their Distinguished Alumni Award in 2008. I'm founder and CEO of Urban Balance, which is an insurance-friendly group counseling practice in the Chicagoland area that has grown to over 5 locations and over 50 therapists since it was founded in 2004. I was honored to be selected for the Crain's Chicago Business 40 Under 40 list of 2010. However, I feel I should mention that I'm now over 40. And I absolutely love this field. I love it because it's given me a language and a lens for which to understand myself, life, and the world around me. I find being a therapist to be emotionally, intellectually, and even spiritually rewarding. My intention today is to share my passion with you through this webinar and to motivate you to achieve your greatest self, both personally and professionally. I'd like you today to think about your own personal definition of success. I feel that many of us get so caught up in what I call the gerbil wheel of life, kind of the daily grind of work, household, and personal responsibilities, that we sometimes become so busy we forget what our real hope or intention is for our life. I ask you to take a step back today and ask to yourself, what does it mean to you to be successful? Recently, I attended a dinner party along with my husband, and we were with some other couples in our neighborhood who also have children the ages of our children. And we were talking about parenting and our hopes for our kids. And one of our friends said, "How will we know when we've succeeded? What is the definition of success?" We all paused, and then people started to throw out words like prosperity, education, love, health, and happiness. I'm embarrassed to admit that my knee-jerk reaction, I think because we were talking about our kids, was to say that success as a parent would also involve the absence of any big catastrophes. After I regrouped, I realized that this was judgmental and fear-based thinking, and it's not really what I believe at all as a therapist. I believe that we all go through hardships and challenges in life as part of being human beings, and that's a normal part of our growth and development. So since that evening, I reflected on this conversation and pondered more deeply about my personal definition of success. And I came up with the following. Success is to live life openly, authentically, and lovingly in a way that is aligned with the highest good of self and others. So essentially, it's to be your best self to the greatest extent possible, and to be your best self for yourself, for everyone that you touch, and even globally for the planet. Today, I ask you to self-reflect. I love this quote from Albert Einstein. He says, "Insanity, doing the same thing over and over again and expecting different results." I believe we're all shaped and molded by our family of origin and earlier life experiences, and that we all unconsciously recreate what is familiar until we make it conscious and we choose something different. I had the benefit of working in the employee assistance program field for a number of years, and we counseled people from different industries, and I really came to believe that we choose our careers for a reason. For example, a staggering statistic from the American Nurses Association says that 83% of nurses are adult children of alcoholics. That staggering statistic suggests that these people grew up in families where perhaps they were the caretaker, and they're recreating that role in their professional environment. So I ask you to put yourself on the couch today, both personally and professionally. I truly believe that our career success is a direct reflection of our personal wellness. We cannot do good work or have a successful career unless we work on ourselves and we are well ourselves. As a business owner, I've been through various highs and lows that have stretched and pushed me further than I've ever imagined. I've come to understand that these ebbs and flows in my work success and challenges are direct reflections of the evolution of my consciousness. For example, when I was in places of fear and self-doubt, my business did not thrive. And when I had faith and confidence in myself and others, my business has done well. As I evolve, my work blossoms and vice versa. For this reason, I believe that personal work through therapy, recovery, meditation, self-care, and even in participating in a webinar such as today's are important aspects of pursuing your life mission. I ask you to become conscious of why you do what you do. Make sure that the role that you're doing is for yourself and not for somebody else. In order to maximize the psychospiritual growth potential of your work, your job must be aligned with the highest good of yourself and others, and to the greatest extent possible. In other words, your own unique abilities must be matched with a need in the world so that you can be part of a greater movement towards health, balance, and wellness for all. So today, I ask you to give yourself permission to let go of old patterns that are no longer working for you and open yourself up to new ways that will allow success into your life. As a therapist, I see patterns in my clients. I see patterns in my own life that I continue to repeat until I choose something different. Consider today what patterns you might unconsciously be recreating in your life that limit your success. I like how Dr. Phil says, "How's that working for you?" I'd like you to write down 2 or 3 patterns that you keep recreating, perhaps giving more than you receive, expecting others to change, etc. Make a commitment to make those changes in your life. Next, I'd like us to talk about your life balance. I named my practice Urban Balance because I'm a huge believer in the importance of work-life balance. I think we live in a culture that we could always work more, we could always work harder, and that isn't always for the best, for ourselves and for our world. This is a diagram called the Wheel of Life, and each spoke of this wheel is a different part of a healthy life. As you look at this diagram, you might think of other spokes that you might add. One of my colleagues suggested adding sexuality, which is also another important aspect of life that is not on this wheel. If you'd like this diagram, it is available on my Psych Central blog, which is again called The Psychology of Success, and it's in a blog posting called Successful People Leverage Their Support Network. Do you? So again, successful people leverage their support network. Do you? And I wrote that in June of 2013. So to complete this exercise, you would put a mark on each spoke of this wheel, and a mark toward the center of the wheel indicates dissatisfaction with that part of your life, and a mark towards the perimeter of the wheel indicates the greatest happiness and fulfillment with that aspect of your life. So you would go around the circle and complete your marks. Oftentimes we find that there are areas of deficit in our life, areas where the wheel is kind of indented, or perhaps your wheel isn't as large as you would like it to be. We want you to have a full and rich and whole and balanced life. So look at each of these areas of wellness and identify perhaps 2 or 3 spokes that you'd like to improve upon. And set some plans for how you would like to improve on each of those spokes. I encourage you to do this exercise after the webinar. It's a good idea to complete this exercise on a yearly basis. I usually look at it around New Year's as part of my New Year's resolutions. For example, if my home cooking is closer to the perimeter, then that's something that I need to work on, and I might choose to have healthy food delivered or make a plan to make that part of my life easier and to make progress in that area. I encourage you to just simply be aware of how you're doing in your self-care and focus on your areas of need. I love the work of Wayne Dyer, and he talks about the importance of taking responsibility. I love this quote, "Everything you do is based on the choices you make. It's not your parents, your past relationships, your job, the economy, the weather, an argument, or your age that is to blame. You and only you are responsible for every decision and choice you make." My belief is that in life we are each dealt a different hand of hardships and blessings, and we must each learn to play our hand wisely. In my practice, I've seen people squander great blessings and also overcome tremendous challenges. I believe life is a journey, and it throws us lessons, opportunities to learn and grow as part of our psycho-spiritual development. Many people spend a lot of time on their therapist couches talking about other people. I've done this myself. When I was in graduate school, I sat on my therapist couch, and that round of therapy starred my mother. And the second round of therapy, when I transitioned to motherhood, starred my husband. And it wasn't until I was in my mid-30s that I made the choice to take responsibility for myself and my own happiness. And this is when I began to blossom. I ask you to save yourself some time and money and focus on that which you can control, yourself. Take control of yourself, your life, and your happiness. Work toward accepting the hand that you've been dealt, and take responsibility for your success from this point forward. Accept the past and be grateful for the wisdom it has granted you. I mentioned that I love Wayne Dyer to my oldest sister, and she said, "You know, Joyce, I think he was my driver's ed teacher." And I said, "No way. He's an internationally renowned psychologist and author." And she said, "No, I swear he was my driver's ed teacher." And so sure enough, I Googled it and learned that, in fact, his first job out of graduate school was at my sister's high school in Michigan, and he did work as the driver's ed teacher in addition to counseling the students there. And I also learned that he grew up in an orphanage and a variety of foster homes. And I thought, isn't that amazing that this is a man who was an orphan and grew up in foster homes, and he overcame, great adversity and has achieved tremendous success. And this is his belief, to take responsibility for yourself rather than being stuck in some kind of victim mentality, which I think we all can fall into very easily. I think it's an excellent reminder to remember the words of Brené Brown. She says, if we own the story, we can write the ending. Very powerful. It really fits with the idea of narrative therapy, that we're each the author of our own story. One of the wellness principles that I feel is most important is bringing your attention to the present. I'm a huge fan of Eckhart Tolle, who wrote The Power of Now and A New Earth. And he said, be at least as interested in what goes on inside you as what happens outside. If you get the inside right, the outside will fall into place. His concepts are really very similar to those in mindfulness practices and DBT and Zen Buddhism. Basically, we all spend a lot of time worrying about the future, obsessing about the past. And he encourages us to focus on the here and now and to stay in the present. I have a client who I talked to about mindfulness and the importance of staying in the present. And he told me that after the session that we spent talking about this, he went to his doctors and learned that he was diagnosed with stage 3 colon cancer. And he said, Joyce, staying in the present is what got me through the next few weeks. And he gave the most beautiful analogy. He said, I feel that it's as if in life each of us is a record album. And the beginning of our life when we're born is when the needle sets down on the perimeter of the record. And if we jump ahead to the future or we zip backwards to the past, we're scratching up our record and we won't hear any music. But if we stay in the present, we realize that everything is basically okay. And I'm happy to report he's doing very well in his treatment. And he's found that mindfulness practices really help keep him anchored and grounded. I believe in the power of breath. I know sometimes people say, oh my gosh, that's so simple to think that we could just breathe and feel better. But across hundreds of cultures and thousands of years, many people have said the breath is what ties together the mind, the body, and the spirit. And if you focus on your breath and you slow it down and you make it deeper, you will relax your mind and your body, and it's a natural way to focus on the here and now. I'm a firm believer in meditation and the power of rebooting your mind and your body by taking even a couple minutes a day to focus on mindfulness practices such as meditation and deep breathing. I love the work of Jon Kabat-Zinn. I recently attended a mindfulness meditation yoga class that was extremely helpful, and I encourage you to check out his work. He talks about conducting body scans, checking in with your body and noticing where you're storing tension, and doing breath work to breathe in and release that tension that you're holding. I find that when I practice mindfulness techniques that I'm truly present and that I do the best clinical work when I'm in this state. My awareness and my intuition are heightened. When you're mindful, you're aware of when you feel joy and when you do not. You can take notice of your life in a different way. And this helps me in my own journey to strive for authenticity. If I pay attention to how I really feel, then I can choose my words more carefully and live my life in a way that has more integrity. I really believe this is the key to happiness and to living a meaningful life, that when we live a life that is present and congruent with who we truly are. I think a lot of people feel unhappy when they're living a life that isn't congruent with their highest self. So I encourage you today to think about seeking work, relationships, and activities that feed your soul, and let go of those that do not. Detach from ego and negativity. Eckhart Tolle talks about the importance of us all detaching from our egos. I like this quote. He says, the primary cause of unhappiness is never the situation, but the thought about it. Be aware of the thoughts you are thinking. Separate them from the situation, which is always neutral. It is as it is. So basically, our ego is our concept of ourself. And Eckhart Tolle talks about our essence, which is the deeper self that lies within. Some people might say it's our authentic self or even our soul or our spirit. And he talks about the importance of detaching from ego and negativity and focusing on our essence. We all have an inner critic. It's the voice in our head that is hard on us. And in therapy, I do a lot of cognitive behavioral therapy, helping clients rework their self-talk. I encourage clients to be their best cheerleader or best coach rather than their worst critic. I also coach my clients not to snowball, which is a term that I call packing one negative thought on top of another. I wrote a blog for Psych Central about anxiety avalanches and how to avoid them. I encourage you to check that out. Basically, staying in the present and detaching from ego and breathing and practicing mindfulness techniques will help you unplug or detach from your inner critic. Oftentimes when we're feeling negatively, it's because we're having a negative belief about ourselves. The belief might be, I'm not good enough, I can't do that. And we want to separate from the situation by zooming out and looking at it objectively from a neutral place. For example, if you don't have money to pay your mortgage, you might feel like you're a failure. You might have thoughts like, I'm a failure, I'm not successful, I'm ashamed. And instead, it just is as it is. The mortgage needs to be paid. You need to figure that out. You're okay. You know, we're all just doing the best that we can. It is as it is. It's neither bad nor good. It just is. I think we all get stuck in judgment and shame and guilt, and these things can be paralyzing. I believe as a therapist that we all have issues. It's part of the human condition. We all deal with depression, anxiety, relationship issues, or addiction, and this is just a normal part of life and our development and our learning. Our psychological issues are how we are. They're not who we are. Who we are is we are exactly as we should be. That our essence inside of us is perfect just the way we are. So detachment from ego is an important process. It's about getting off the crazy train of life and knowing that really everything truly is going to be okay. And confidence is actually detachment from ego, where you don't fear rejection or failing. You're just yourself, your authentic self, and the situation is as it is. I encourage you today to let go of defensiveness. We all have defense mechanisms like rationalization, intellectualization, and denial. I encourage you to become mindful of when you're being defensive and focus on letting go of that defensiveness and being vulnerable and being real. I encourage you to focus on liking yourself rather than pleasing others. Let go of that fear and defensiveness that we all think protects us. They're actually a waste of everybody's time and energy and are a wedge between you and the life that you want. I think sometimes people actually fear their success. I love this quote by Marianne Williamson. She says, our deepest fear is not that we are inadequate. Our deepest fear is that we are powerful beyond measure. It is our light, not our darkness, that most frightens us. I see this in my practice. People fear their power. They fear responsibility, the pressure, changes in relationships. And so we become defensive. Instead, I ask you to open yourself up to success. I like this quote from Jay Johnson. He said, if we are ever going to achieve real success, we will have to be willing to live our lives as our actual selves, to be true, to be authentic. I had a boss who used to say to himself, what would I do if I weren't afraid? I wrote a blog on releasing fear, uncertainty, and doubt. Instead, choose to be authentic and let love and hope be your guides. I love the words of Brené Brown. She said, vulnerability is our most accurate measurement of courage. It takes courage to be yourself and to put yourself out there. My own personal therapist is Arlene Englander, and she wrote the Insourcing Handbook, which is a wonderful resource. I encourage you to check it out on Amazon.com. It basically is a toolbox for how to survive a variety of life issues that we all experience. But one of the things that she said to me that I found very, very helpful is she says feelings are waves of energy which we can choose to surf rather than allow them to overcome us. Again, I believe that we all can benefit from therapy at different points in our lives, and this is something healthy and normal and proactive. We all experience waves of feelings and emotions in our lives. I believe feelings are waves of energy and that we store them in the body. I believe in the mind-body connection and the importance of releasing toxic and negative feelings that could be negatively impacting our health and our thinking and our relationships. Our feelings are always normal responses to everything that we've been through. Sometimes it might seem like our emotional response is greater than the situation at hand, but that's only because it's tapping into a well, a deeper well of stored feelings from previous similar experiences. And an event can trigger a tidal wave of unresolved feelings. So I encourage you to seek your own therapy or release your feelings through breath work, through art, through dance, through movement, through exercise, and to honor your feelings. They're a normal part of the human experience, but you can choose to separate from them. You don't have to be overtaken or engulfed by them. You can choose to notice them, observe them, be aware of them. They are what they are. They serve a purpose. And to separate from them and to surf the waves, ride them rather than become engulfed by them. Self-care is an enormously important thing for all of us. Again, I think in our culture, we tend to work first and put our self-care last, and this is a recipe for disaster. I like this quote by Samuel Johnson. He said, "Health is certainly more valuable than money because it is by health that money is procured." I love the analogy that the importance of self-care is kind of like when we're on an airplane and the flight attendant says, in the event of an emergency, you need to secure your own oxygen mask before assisting someone else. Obviously, this means that you have to take care of yourself first, otherwise you're going to be of no use to anybody else. And I think many times people kind of martyr themselves, like my own last name, and can be codependent and kind of a doormat and not take care of themselves, put everybody else before them until they're exhausted and burnt out and resentful and depressed. It's up to each of us to be our own good parents, to love ourselves and to nurture ourselves, mind, body, and spirit. Again, as professionals, we can all work 24/7, and we have to create our own structure and limits and practice self-care to reboot our brains and our bodies. It's important to remember to play, to laugh, to exercise, to have hobbies. Sometimes taking time away from work actually reboots your mind so that you're more present and more effective in your work. It's better to take those breaks. Exercise is a way to release emotions stored in the body. Self-care doesn't need to be expensive or take a lot of time. It can be even having your favorite tea. It can be going for a walk. It can be 2 minutes of meditation or breath work. I love to listen to guided meditations on my phone whenever I have a break or doing some simple stretches. All of these things are an important part of self-care. I'd like you to write down one personal self-care behavior you'd like to adopt and one professional self-care behavior you'd like to adopt. An example of a professional self-care behavior is, after years of doing my own billing for my practice, I finally hired a billing service, and I was so grateful that I made that decision. It was really a healthy decision for me. An important part of success is to think positively. I like this quote from Gandhi. He said, "A man is but the product of his thoughts. What he thinks, he becomes." We all know we prefer to be around positive people, people who are joyful, who have good energy. We can all think of people in our lives who are negative and toxic. And so I encourage you to self-reflect. How are you coming across? How are you thinking? Because what you think is what you become. I encourage you to practice empathy, which I feel is the magic tool for relationships. Empathy is the ability to put yourself in somebody else's shoes and imagine how they feel, and to show kindness and compassion and sympathy and honor their emotional experience. I also encourage you to be empathic toward yourself. And again, to choose to be your best coach or cheerleader rather than your worst critic. I encourage you to cut yourself some slack. That's something I always work with on my clients, to turn down the volume on that inner critic and cut yourself some slack, have some humor, have the ability to laugh at yourself. All of these things are really important. I encourage you in your breathing exercises to breathe out your negative thoughts and instead choose to look at the good parts. Choose to breathe in what you need, whether it's peace, serenity, strength, or courage. I believe in the laws of attraction, and if you're positive, you will attract positive opportunities and people into your life. Before I was a therapist, I didn't think a lot about boundaries, and I wish lay people talked more about boundaries. We all have boundaries. We have physical boundaries. You can think about close talkers. We have sexual boundaries. We have information boundaries. You can imagine those people that disclose a tremendous amount of information at your first meeting. And then there are other people who are very, very guarded, and it takes a very long time to get to know them. We have financial boundaries, time boundaries, etc. And we want to think about our boundaries and set up boundaries that are healthy for us. We want to feel safe and comfortable and not, overly vulnerable or exposed, but we also want to be permeable. We want intimacy and connection in our lives. So we need to manage our boundaries in a way that's healthy for us. I like this quote from Dr. Phil. I'm not sure how I feel about him overall, but I do love this quote. He says, "We teach people how to treat us." It's something really to think about. I often say that healthy self-esteem is somewhere between diva and doormat. So the diva is somebody who violates other people's boundaries in kind of an entitled, grandiose way. And the doormat doesn't have respect for herself and allows her boundaries to be compromised. An assertive, healthy person is somewhere in the middle. They show respect for themselves and for others and use assertive communication to set clear boundaries. I always encourage people to use I statements rather than you statements, and it's important to learn to say no. Love yourself enough to say no and set healthy boundaries in your life. For more information on boundaries, I like the work of Drs. Cloud and Townsend. I encourage you to embody your core values. Again, Wayne Dyer said, "How people treat you is their karma. How you react is yours." So thinking about how you handle conflict, how you handle anger, how you handle disappointment, and how do you affect others. I encourage you to treat people the way you want to be treated, to be the bigger person, especially during times of conflict. Carry yourself in a way that demonstrates respect for yourself and others. Be diplomatic, be authentic and direct, and choose your words wisely. I truly believe what comes around goes around. And in my business experience, in my practice, I've been shocked at what a small world it really is, and thankful that I haven't burned bridges, because people are all connected. And again, what we put out there comes back to us threefold. I encourage you to identify your gifts. I love the book, The Alchemist. I encourage you to read it if you haven't. And the quote from the author that I love is, "To realize one's destiny is a person's only obligation." Again, I believe in life we're each dealt a different hand of hardships and blessings, and we each have a destiny. We each have a mission, a personal and professional mission, and our goal is to self-actualize, to achieve that mission. I once heard a developmental psychologist say that we are all gifted and we are all disabled. I loved that. I think that's so true. And so I encourage you to think about your gifts and focus on those. Notice what people compliment you about. Pay attention to the things that you do right, and keep a journal. Keep a list of your strengths and focus on those. This doesn't eliminate your weaknesses, but it'll help you to discover how to improve upon yourself and how to minimize the things that you're working on. Focus on the good parts. Identify your unique abilities and how you can use them in your mission. I encourage you to give and share whenever possible. This has been my philosophy with my practice, and I found it to be actually my best networking and referral source generator is helping other people. I find that when I'm networking, if I'm thinking about how I can help somebody else, that it ends up coming back toward me. I love the words of Buddha. Thousands of candles can be lit from a single candle. and the life of the candle will not be shortened. Happiness never decreases by being shared. I truly believe in the abundance theory, that there's enough success, money, love, health, prosperity, and goodness for all of us, and that by sharing it, it's only going to grow. And so I encourage you to pay it forward. Every time that you're given an opportunity to help someone, seize that opportunity. I like this quote from Brian Tracy, who says, "Successful people are always looking for opportunities to help others. Unsuccessful people are always asking, what's in it for me?" We all know that's a turnoff. I actually learned this philosophy from a childhood book by Richard Scarry called Pig Will and Pig Won't. It's kind of silly, but I read it to my kids now, and I still believe in it. And in the story, Pig Will and Pig Won't are brothers, and obviously Pig Will is willing to help with anything his parents ask, and Pig Won't is not. And Pig Will ends up being taken for ice cream, and all these good things happen for him. And I truly believe that. If you give and share whenever possible, you will increase your flow, and that energy will come back to you threefold. Our support network is an extremely important part of our success. I like this quote from Tom Osborne. He said, "Friends are like elevator buttons. They either take you up or they take you down." As human beings, we are interdependent. We need one another. And each of us has a support network. I think about our support networks as being concentric circles. You have people in your inner circle, perhaps your partner or your family, your best friend, and then you have your next circle, perhaps those are your coworkers or your neighbors or your extended family. Be conscious of who you choose to be in your support network. I believe in synchronicity. I believe that people come into our lives for a reason, and it's important to look out for those people who can help you grow. Think of your support network as a garden that you need to tend to. Weed out relationships that are negative or toxic for you, and nurture the ones that are positive and help you grow. Choose relationships that promote your growth of consciousness. Again, friends are like elevators. Invite intimacy and connection in your life. I believe that we attract people of a similar level of mental health, and as we get healthier, we attract healthier people into our lives. I encourage you to look at your support network and consider who you have to ask for help in your life. One of my colleagues says that she thinks about her support network as each person having a menu of what they're able to offer. And she says you wouldn't go to a bakery and order a steak because you'll end up disappointed. So you want to utilize your support network in a way that's smart and effective. You want to ask the right people for the help that they're capable of offering you. So for example, you wouldn't ask your friend who's a blast to go shopping and partying with for really deep emotional support and advice. You might be setting yourself up for disappointment. If you look for how you can help people, again, they will be willing to help you. Look at it as good karma that will come back to you. This is something that I think is really important because we all go through setbacks in life. We all go through, again, I think depression, relationship issues, various life challenges, and I think it's really important to view setbacks as opportunities for growth. Helen Keller said, "Character cannot be developed in ease and quiet. Only through experience of trial and suffering can the soul be strengthened, ambition inspired, and success achieved." So again, I encourage you to think about even negative experiences are opportunities for loss and growth. A couple years ago, my business partner left suddenly. She left the practice. She just no longer wanted to do this work. It was devastating for me. It really was like a business divorce. And I was very scared. It was very difficult. It ended up being a blessing. She is well. I am well. I've learned I'm far stronger and more capable than I ever imagined, and my business is prospering. Even the deaths of my parents, which for sure the most difficult thing I've ever been through, as I processed my grief and my loss, I gained wisdom and awareness that has been a blessing in my life. So look at how your difficulties can bring you blessings. I often remind my clients that progress is not linear. These are diagrams that I created. If you look at the first one on the left, it says not typical. We don't kind of go from 0 to 10 in a straight line. with no bumps along the way. What's more typical is the diagram on the right, where we make progress and then we hit a setback. We go through a loop in life. In recovery, that might be a relapse. With depression, it might be a depressive episode. It doesn't mean that you're back at ground zero. It just means that you're going through a bit of a regression. And that's a normal part of our evolution as human beings. You just have to recognize it and work through it and, again, surf the waves of emotion and get back on the horse and move forward, access your support network, etc. Eckhart Tolle said, life will give you whatever experience is most helpful for the evolution of your consciousness. So again, those setbacks, those difficult things in life are really truly blessings that are helping you grow. I believe there are ebbs and flows in the process of life, and sometimes those ebbs are necessary. They're causing you to take a moment to reflect or inviting you to learn something. Acceptance is so important. Again, so many people spend so much time and energy talking about what they cannot control. I love the serenity prayer, which is grant me the serenity to accept the things I cannot change, the courage to change the things that I can, and the wisdom to know the difference. So smart. It really tells you where you can focus your energy and where it's not useful to focus your energy. I love these words from Maya Angelou. She said, if you don't like something, change it. If you can't change it, change your attitude. I also like the thought, it is what it is. We all have to practice acceptance, whether it's in our relationships, with our families, with our children, with our neighbors, with our coworkers, or even in a line or a traffic jam. We need to conserve our energy and stop trying to change what we can't change. It just is as it is. Instead, you can take responsibility, again, take control for yourself, your own needs, your own thoughts, your own behaviors, your own choices. You can change yourself, but you cannot change another person. Forgive yourself and others. Nelson Mandela said, resentment is like drinking poison and then hoping it will kill your enemies. Really, beyond acceptance is forgiveness. And again, I believe we store our feelings as waves of energy in the body, and if we're holding resentment or hardened anger in our bodies, I feel that that can affect our health negatively. It's really important to forgive others, even if it's for our own sake, like this Nelson Mandela quote. Forgive those with whom you're angry, including yourself. Release that energy and let it go. I like this quote. It's from an unknown source. It says, getting over a painful experience is much like crossing monkey bars. You have to let go at some point in order to move forward. It's really, really important. Let go of any shame or anger or self-loathing and create space for joy in your life. Resiliency, I think, is an enormous aspect of success. Being defeated is often a temporary condition. Giving up is what makes it permanent. I was recently speaking with an artist, and she's been painting and painting. She has the most beautiful work, and she hasn't sold anything yet. And she said, I just keep doing this and out of faith. And I really identified with her because I've been working on a book for a couple of years that has been rejected by publishers. But I believe in resiliency, that when you have a good idea, you need to stick with it. Years ago, I came up with an idea at my practice for pre-baby couples counseling, and it never really took off in the way that I hoped. And 8 years later, I got a call from the Wall Street Journal, was interviewed about the topic, and was quoted in a cover story along with John Gottman, who's the guru of couples therapy. And that was a reminder to me to stay the course. When you believe in an idea or something, you need to have resiliency and stay the course. Discover the power of intention. Wayne Dyer said, our intention creates our reality. Intentions are different than goals. Goals are fixed on an outcome in the future, while an intention is to live a certain way in the present. So it's basically the difference between a goal being I want to lose 10 pounds and an intention being I want to live healthfully. So I encourage you to really think about your intentions both personally and professionally and to jot some down. With my practice, my intention was to provide insurance-friendly counseling services to people in the Chicagoland area because many therapists don't accept insurance around here, and I believe therapy should be accessible and affordable. And I also wanted to create work-life balance for myself and be able to make an income when I wasn't directly seeing clients. And I believe because this was a win-win for myself and my staff, they're able to see good clients. I provide the office space and the referrals and the billing service, and they do good clinical work, and it's a win for the clients, and it's a win for me. The universe has supported that intention. I encourage you to create your own ideal work-life balance. No one ever on their deathbed ever said, I wish I spent more time at work. So again, it's important for you to set boundaries in your life and practice self-care. Set boundaries with technology. That's very, very important. I encourage you to establish a career plan that fits in the context of your life, not the other way around. I encourage you to open yourself up to prosperity. Dr. Joyce Marter said, success is a state of mind. If you want success, start thinking of yourself as a success. I believe that we all have a relationship with money, a psychological relationship with money that we've learned from our families of origin, and we unconsciously recreate them. I like this quote from Antonio Raimondi, who was an explorer, and he said, "We are all beggars sitting on a golden bench." Again, I believe in abundance theory, that all the goodness in the world is available to ourselves, and that it's ourselves that sets our own ceilings. So I encourage yourself to open yourself up to receiving. Open your mind and your body and your spirit to receiving whatever it is that you want to receive. I love the work of Louise Hay. She has a great CD called Receiving Prosperity. I encourage you to check that out. I believe in the power of developing a vision. For those of you who have ever created a vision board, I think that that's a really powerful tool. I encourage you to do so if you haven't. You basically take a poster board and take magazine photos and pictures and make a collage of what you'd like your life to look like. I believe that our vision becomes a reality, just like in sports psychology. I like the quote from Dr. Phil again. He said, "The most you get is what you ask for, so aim high." I also like Gandhi's quote, "Be the change you want to see in the world." Again, look for the win-win, and the universe will support your plan, and aim high. I always ask my clients, if you had a magic wand, what would you want? Gratitude is an extremely important thing to practice to invite positivity into your life. I love this quote, "He is a wise man who does not grieve for the things which he has not, but rejoices for those which he has." The book The Secret was so popular years ago and talked about the laws of attraction, and I really believe that. If we focus on what we don't have, we're going to be miserable and attract negativity. If we focus on the good parts and we're grateful, we're going to attract more of that into our lives. I often encourage my clients to keep gratitude journals, and it teaches more positive thinking. I thank you for this opportunity. As part of my gratitude, I want to thank you all for participating in this presentation. My last slide here is on perseverance. Ralph Waldo Emerson said, "Our greatest glory is not in never failing, but in rising up every time we fail." So in your personal and professional journey, as you go through those loops in life, I encourage you to persevere. Just keep climbing. Just keep swimming, like Dory says from Finding Nemo. I love that quote. So I wish you all tremendous success, and I'm happy to answer any questions that you might have. And also feel free to connect with me on social media. I have my LinkedIn information there, and Twitter and Facebook up on the slide.
Joyce, thank you so much. That was wonderful.
Thank you, Zoe. It was fun to do.
You mentioned that you've achieved the age of 40, and you sound like such an old soul. I really soaked that up, I have to say. And in fact, I personally would like to take you up, I think about halfway through the presentation. You encouraged us to visit your blog at Psych Central to find that life balance wheel diagram, and I'd love to try that. Could you, are we able to print it out?
Yes, from there you can simply drag the image to your desktop and then print it from your desktop.
Okay, and it's a post that you wrote in June 2013. Could you tell us the title again one more time?
Sure. It says it's called Successful People Leverage Their Support Network. Do you?
Great. Okay, thanks for that. Now we do have some questions that have been asked by our participants, and let's see, the first one, someone would like to hear more about how the group practice works, and the questioner is asking, is that something that they can speak with you about on Facebook or LinkedIn?
Absolutely. I love to help private practitioners learn more about group practice. Basically, in my practice, I provide the billing, the office space, and the referrals for the clinicians who work with me, and I really enjoy the marketing aspect, and I often consult people on how to develop a private practice, so definitely I would welcome people to contact me for consultation around that.
Great. Okay. Thank you. Now, okay, here's one. Our participant says, I'm in the midst of a career transition, wanting to move from a bureaucratic government job in a cubicle and to move towards something with more, and this is in quotes, heart. I have some ideas of things that make me tick, but find it hard to explore different fields without getting hung up on, again, in quotations, how am I going to make money at this? I can relate to that. How can we pursue and explore our passions without holding ourselves back with practical questions? Or should we, in fact, be very realistic right from the get-go? You mentioned aim high. There's a good one.
Right. Absolutely. I do believe in aiming high. And of course we need to be realistic and make sure that we can pay our bills and that we can take care of ourselves. But I believe that we can do anything that we believe we can do. So it's really common for people to feel kind of stuck in the golden handcuffs, so to speak. So they feel like they're kind of locked into their job or career that provides them with some stability, but maybe isn't really fueling their soul in a way that more meaningful work would do. And so I encourage those people to get into therapy or coaching and to talk about, you know, what does make them tick and to develop a business plan. And to do that, you know, part-time on the side, to develop the plan, do some networking, tap into your support network, talk to your financial advisor, your partner, develop a plan for how you're going to make this happen, you know, whether it means going back to school or it might mean, you know, shifting to part-time work while you build up a business. There's lots of different ways to get creative, and if you believe something is possible, then it will come to fruition. And I often say to clients, like, you know, do you think you'll get that promotion? And if they say no, then I'll say, you know, then you won't, because you don't believe that you will. So again, make that vision board and stick with the plan. I love it.
You know, Joyce, a couple times I've noticed throughout your presentation, and I love this, you've emphasized support in different areas of our lives and achieving that balance, that supportive network. Do you have one? Who is it? How to use it? And I think I just want to make note of that once again, here comes that support even in the career transition and the rest of your life. And sometimes I think we have another question, and this is a bit of a segue to it. Sometimes we forget that we have those supports, and I know much like the next question, I work on my own, and I forget that I do have a number of resources at my fingertips. So the next question is, I am a freelance writer, and this is from one of our participants. I'm a freelance writer too, but this is from a participant. I'm a freelance writer and single mother working at home. Any ideas for how to achieve some kind of balance in this situation?
That is a really challenging thing, and I have spoken to people who work from home. At my local Chamber of Commerce, I was invited to be a presenter for them, and it's really important to set your own structure to the day to make sure that you wake up at a certain time, that you get up, that you get showered, that you get dressed so that you feel like a human being and you're not sitting in your jammy pants unshowered all day. And especially if you're working from home as a mom, then you're going to want to have some kind of structure, whether it's, you know, you're working during the nap time and nap time is at this time, and then you're not working when you're going to the playground or you're walking around the neighborhood. It's important to have some sort of routine or schedule. And then going back to support, it's also important to get the support that you need. So if you don't have any child care assistance, you might consider doing a co-op and swapping with other parents who also need some support and a break so that you have some child-free time to get your work done and you're not kind of burning the candle at both ends and setting yourself up for failure.
Okay.
I think, again, accessing support is really, really important, and structure is important, and and really carving out the time that you're present with your work and the time that you're present with your child.
I also think, you know, I mean, it's your webinar, but when I hear accessing support for myself personally, sometimes a precursor to that is just identifying it. I've learned in my community that there is so much support available that people don't tend to know about. So oftentimes we can eke out support by word of mouth and asking the right questions of others. You know, how do you get support for this and that? And there may be those little gems out there that we're not aware of.
Definitely. Even online support, places like Psych Central and chat rooms, and then there's, you know, therapy and community support systems and lots of different energy that we can tap into, and we need to ask for what we need. And you're right, the first step is identifying what we need.
Yes.
One of my best...
Sorry, go ahead.
Sure, I'm sorry. One of my best friends always says, when she leans on me, she says, "I'm so sorry that I need support." And I always laugh at her because she's a really brilliant therapist, and she knows we all need support. And that it's actually a blessing to me. And when you allow somebody to help you, it helps them as well. So to keep that in mind as well.
Exactly. And, you know, that was a really great transition into the next question, which is about therapy. We have someone in our webinar who's asking, do you attempt therapy with your own family members?
Well, certainly we cannot attempt therapy with our own family members. It just doesn't work. We don't have the objectivity, and it's just not a professional relationship. It's a personal relationship, and the boundaries are different. But if a family member is struggling with something like depression or anxiety, you can certainly, as a family member, express your concern and normalize their experience by saying, you know, hey, you know, I just attended this webinar and I learned that we all deal with these types of issues in life, and that therapy is something healthy and normal and proactive, and it's often covered by insurance. And here you can go to Psych Central to goodtherapy.org and find a therapist that's nearby that takes your insurance. And, you know, that's what you can control, but you can't be their therapist, certainly.
Right. And I know at Psych Central, a lot of us, those of us who blog there, often have discussions about stigma and mental health, and I think maybe one of the keys in approaching the family member, Joyce, I'm wondering if you would agree with this, is to really present it as a support rather than something negative, to take out the stigma and be encouraging and supportive and helpful rather than you've got a problem. You know what I mean? And family, we can get into that.
Definitely. It's important not to be judgmental, but just to say, to stick to what's factual or objective. Hey, I noticed that, you know, you haven't been going out much, or, you know, you've been telling me that you've been feeling down, and I love you and I'm concerned, and you know, we have a family history of depression, and I think it'd be a good idea to talk to someone.
Nice, nice. Okay, well, I'm aware of the time. We do have one more question that I'd like to get to before we go. And, okay, so a question here, another one. I am a fairly new therapist, and I'm very interested in self-care. I really appreciate this webinar, and I'd like to know how you deal with stressful times.
Again, I think for me, the process has been a lot about my own personal therapy, that I believe that we come into this field as therapists because of our own family of origin and earlier life experiences, and they may have blessed us with empathy and the ability to have insight and to communicate with others. But we have our own issues, and so it's important to discover those and to get support through therapy. And I think another thing that I've had to learn is that, you know, none of us is perfect, and to be a great therapist doesn't mean that you have to be a perfect human being. We all make mistakes. We all act like jerks sometimes. We're all works in progress. Nobody's perfect. And so a lot of my work has been really turning down the volume on that inner critic. And again, I think part of my journey has been around discovering the power of meditation and staying in the present, and how important that's been in really accessing my higher self. I do think exercise is really important, and having some boundaries around your work really. I had a supervisor once that said, "Joyce, you're very empathic and you have the ability to breathe in people's stuff, but you need to breathe it out." And I think as therapists, that's something that we need to remember. We need to let it go. And that's part of self-care as well.
Excellent. Excellent reminder. Yeah. Thank you so much. Now I am aware of the time, Joyce, and I just want to say that I felt that your presentation was just so full of wonderful advice. It was juicy and just filled with good information. So I want to let everyone know that if, like myself, you feel that you'd like to re-listen to some of the wonderful words of wisdom and the advice and good ideas that we've gotten tonight from Joyce, please do visit Psych Central's YouTube channel, and you can see the website address on screen here, youtube.com/Psych Central. And you'll find a recording of tonight's webinar with Joyce. You'll also find previous webinars. And we're building up a library, so do come back for our next webinar, which will be in approximately a month, but you'll be hearing about it at psychcentral.com. So for this evening, I would first like to thank everyone who attended live and those who will be watching afterwards, and especially, of course, Psych Central for hosting, and finally, saving the best for last. Joyce, thank you so much for all the work you've put into this and for your compassionate and kind spirit. I really enjoyed the presentation, and I know that our participants did too. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Zoe. I really appreciate it, and thank you to you all.
All right. Thank you on behalf of psychcentral.com. Good night, everyone.